Hello out there. This is Pamela Fagan Hutchins, and you have stumbled across, found, sought out, or however you ended up here, Wine, Women, and Writing. This is the show where I talk with other writers about their amazing books. And I tend to focus in on books with super female characters. I talk to a lot of women writers, and I will be doing that today as well. But first, a few housekeeping items. I want to thank you guys because Kindle is where you find my books, and last week's Switchback was number 25 on Kindle, and I have you guys to thank for it. And keep reading that sucker; it's kicking some butt, and I love it. I also wanted to let you know, those of you that are authors, and I know a lot of authors are readers and readers are authors, that I've got another virtual retreat coming up June 24th through 26th. It's Indie Publishing Success, and we will dive deep into medium level to advanced advertising and promotion. And May 20th will be my next show. I know I've had two this week. I've been really crazy with the shows, but the May 20th will be Colleen Money and Amy Van Zant talking about Summer Snoops, and you can find out about past shows and new shows so that you can read ahead and be ready to kind of book club with the authors with me on my website. This is a copyrighted and solely owned production of Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and all hail Pam Stack, our Uber producer. There, I've done my duty to God and country for the day. Now we're ready to have fun.
Wow.
I know. So I started doing it first. It's the most boring thing to say, but
but you have to.
Lawyers. I hate lawyers. So I'm talking today with the author of the award-winning Pennies from Burger Heaven, which is part of the Copper Daniels series. And her latest novel is Bones and Lies Between Us, and she's here to talk about it, Marcy McKay. Marcy!
Thank you, Pamela. I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to see anyone these days.
So if you're watching or listening to this and it's like 2021, please bear in mind that these two crazy women are talking to each other in the middle of a global pandemic with no sufficient outside stimulation. So thank you. Thank you for being my person today.
Back at you, baby.
And so with respect to, isolation, where are you broadcasting from today, Miss McKay?
Actually, my family lives on the rim of the Palo Duro Canyon, which is the second largest canyon in the United States after the Grand Canyon. So I live on 1.6 acres of beauty, but still, as much as I love my husband and my 19-year-old son, I'm a little tired of just seeing the two of them.
Exactly. So you guys live already an existence that isn't heavily peopled because of where your house is, but heavily peopled versus not peopled at all is a big difference.
Right. But, everybody's doing the best they can, and that's just how it is. So we're just rolling with it.
You got to do that. And how has it been having the 19-year-old back full time? Because he's usually colleging, right?
Yes. He is. He just finished his sophomore year at the University of Alabama. And fortunately or unfortunately, my 19-year-old is more mature than my husband and I put together. And I'm not joking. Like, he gets up at 6 o'clock, his bed is made, he goes for a run, he unloads the dishwasher. And I'm like, who the hell are you? So yeah, he's easy. If I had known, I would have had 5 more kids if they could all be just like him. But you're going through the same thing. Some of your children are living with you and some of them aren't. And that's like a different kind of heartache. My 22-year-old daughter goes to school in San Antonio, Texas. And so we FaceTime all the time. But this mom heart, it's a struggle. It's real.
Exactly. We've got our 22-year-old, but we can't see the rest of them. And we FaceTimed with the middle daughter the other night and thought, gosh, that's going to make it better. But sometimes it makes it worse. You're like, oh, you're so close. Just come on. And they can't.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
Texas is opening up a little bit, so I guess they can. But where you are actually is kind of, it's hot and heavy with COVID right now.
Yeah, right outside of Amarillo, Texas. In fact, the New York Times listed Amarillo as the number 10 potential hotspot because our numbers were climbing so rapidly. So that's not a list you want to be number 10 on of the New York Times, but so we're all just trying to do our part. And so, but my family had a house fire 3 years ago. And so it was a great crash course of living in a crisis. And so my family's kind of like, we can do this. We already had a pregame warm up. So, anyway, everybody's just sort of struggling in their own ways, and everybody has good days and bad days, but we're getting through it. So, but thank you for asking, Pamela.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, because what's most important right now is that we're well, right? And I think that books are one of the things that are keeping a lot of people sane. I have readers that tell me they read from dawn till dusk. I have some people that are binging Netflix from dawn till dusk. Oh, that would be my Belgian Malinois. If you hear the barking, that means the 22-year-old has graced us with her presence. She's awake and the dog is happy. So ignore the dog.
Okay.
Ignore the 22-year-old if she comes out here. Oh, please, Lord, no, in her nightgown. Because it's only 10 o'clock. But people react to it differently. I haven't read a single book, and I normally read a ton. I found my writing to be a little bit more of a struggle and had to find things that matched what I felt like writing. What about you? How's it going for you?
I'm reading nonfiction. I kind of go through these phases. I'm going through a nonfiction phase, and not to go off on too much of a tangent, but quarantine brain is 100% real, because when there is a shock or a crisis or an overwhelm, our bodies kind of freak out and go into shock. So everything's harder. It's harder to concentrate. It's harder to accomplish your regular to-do list. Your sleep might be interrupted. You might be stress eating. So it's 100% real. And so as far as writing, I'm writing a nonfiction book about what I learned after our house fire and the anxieties I see happening in the world with the coronavirus. And so I'm kind of in nonfiction mode, but I think any writing is healing for a writer. So I'm just going with it. I'm just going with it, because all you can do. That's all you can do. Everybody's handling this different, and it's not one size fits all. So what's right for me might not be right for you, and that doesn't make one of us wrong and the other's right. Everyone has to do what's best for him or her.
I'm so glad you said that, because you really have to write whatever is currently in your heart and whatever currently you're called to write, or to do whatever it is you're called to do, or et cetera, that's in your heart. And sometimes just the act of sitting down in the chair can make you feel accomplished as well. And whatever it is that helps you get through this, as long as it's legal, y'all, I don't mean anything, but as long as it's legal, that's a pretty good thing, because we need something to help us get through this. We need it. Now, we'll get back to that, but I don't want to forget to mention that you guys, I do happen to know exactly where Marcy lives. It's where I used to do cross-country workouts as a teenage girl, because Marcy and I are both from Amarillo, Texas.
Amarillo, Texas.
And so I want to hear it from your words. I know how I remember running back into you, but tell me about our reacquaintance.
I meant to look it up. Not everything survived our house fire, so I don't know if I could find my award. I can't remember if it was 2010 or 2012, but you and I were both at the Texas Writers League conference in Austin, their agents conference, and it was the big award ceremony. And we had each, of course, won our respective categories. And I can't remember, were you already up on the award podium? I can't remember who was there first, but the other one, name was called and went up to the front, and all the other winners are standing up there with their little awards. And you and I both kind of looked at each other, and then the award ceremony, keeps going. And afterwards, we kind of walk up to each other and we're like, "Hey, aren't you?" And the funny thing is that Pamela and I were rival cheerleaders in high school. So, God love her. She went to the wrong high school. No, she didn't. My children actually graduated from Amarillo High School, and it was a very, very good school. Yes, both my kids were Sandy's. I graduated from Tascasa. And Pamela, what I remember from you is you were always just nice. Our schools were very rivals, but just whenever our paths crossed at games or whatever, we always had a nice visit. I always liked you. And then here it was, 20 years later, we both show up at this award ceremony, and we're both, authors and da-da-da-da. And it was just, I don't know, it was just sort of one of those fun serendipitous things, because you were still just the nice girl I remembered, but you had become a nice, accomplished woman.
It was so surreal. And, it was one of those moments where you're like, of all the gin joints, I was really proud of Amarillo at that point, because I was thinking, okay, what are the odds in a state the size of France, basically, that you get two writers from public school in Amarillo who are emerging at the top of this heap, at least, at this moment in time, these ways. And it was like up with Amarillo moment. So go Amarillo Public Schools.
Yeah.
And over the years, then we kept back in touch with each other. And then we both started having novels that actually came out after that. And it's been so much fun to see how much people love Copper Daniels. She is Marcy's. So you guys, if you love The Lovely Bones, or if you love Room, you're really, really going to love Copper Daniels. But I want you to, I know that we need to be very careful about spoilers here, but if you could tell us about Copper and the series, and then get us into Bones and Lies Between Us.
Okay, I will. Let me show you. So here's the first book, Pennies from Burger Heaven. And in 2008, I always like hearing the stories behind the story. And so to let your listeners know, the way this book came about is in our hometown of Amarillo, Texas. I was in a cemetery. I was in the cemetery that my father was buried in, and it's a historic cemetery, and I've been there countless times because my dad's buried there, my grandparents, all my husband's family. And I drove through the wrought iron gates one fall afternoon in 2008, and I heard this voice. And I know that's odd, but writers hear voices, and so that didn't freak me out at all. But I thought, oh, that's this homeless woman. And I was thinking, I had a conversation recently with my brother, because the reason I was at this cemetery is I was writing their quarterly newsletter. So I was out there for just one of our regular business meetings. And when my brother heard that I was going to this cemetery, he told me that he, years ago, had been a driver. He'd sort of been an errands boy for a local accounting firm, and this cemetery was one of their clients. So once a month, he would go out there and pick up their books, and he got to know this homeless woman who lived at the cemetery. And so they kind of became friends. And so once a month, when my brother would go out there, he would always take a sandwich or something in case he ran into this woman. And the reason she lived there, she was a single woman on the streets, and she felt safer because this cemetery has a wrought iron fence around it. And since people think, ghosts and hobgoblins live at the cemetery, no one bothered her at night. So I drive past the wrought iron gates. I hear this voice in my head, and I think, oh, this is that woman that my brother told me about that he met 20 years ago. So I didn't think anything of it. I go on to my meeting. For whatever reason, that night, I'm home alone. My husband and 2 kids weren't there, which I have no idea why I was home alone, because I never got to be home alone when my kids were, 8 and 11. But I was home alone, and that voice in my head wouldn't stop. And so I started writing down her story, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not a grown woman at all. This is a little girl. She's 11 and her mom is missing. They live at the cemetery. She wakes up one morning and her mom is gone. Where is her mother? And so that's the whole premise of this book. Copper Daniels, lives beneath the warrior angel at the cemetery and wakes up one morning and her mom is gone. So she's got to brave the big bad world alone to find out what happens. And then, the second one, Bones and Lies Between Us, takes place 6 months later. And so Copper's life is just a different kind of bad. And someone she loves is accused of murder, and the whole world believes it. And Copper's like, and so she kind of braves the big bad world alone to sort of right this family wrong. So that's it.
You did good on that. So you guys, I've read all these books, and I have to be very careful because we want to make sure we preserve the experience for everyone by not doing
spoilers.
And you did really good there. I was like, I'm not going there. I'm not going to say a word. But so with these 2 books, there's also been a couple of others that people can enjoy in the series as well. A novella, is it a short story? Okay.
Yes,
Tell us about
yes. Both of them are prequels. They take place before Pennies from Burger Heaven. One is a short story called The Moon Rises at Dawn, about this same little homeless girl, and the other's a novella called Stars Among the Dead. Yeah,
I was about to say it for you.
Yeah.
and so, what I found amazing about Bones and Lies Between Us really is that you managed to write it in the aftermath, or a little bit before and in the aftermath of losing your home, of your house burning down. How did that affect your writing process and what you wrote? There's a trick for you.
That's a really good question. I think it was cathartic for me because it was just so important to keep doing things that made me feel normal, because we lived in that house for 17 years, and then one day we never did again. And so it was just so it helped ground me to do things that still felt like Marcy. And so, you understand this, that the book is the boss. You think the book is going one way, and then your characters are like, no. And
exactly.
The story is what the story is. But it just was very cathartic because it just kept helping me feel like me when nothing felt like me, because I didn't understand trauma at that point, and I didn't understand how a crisis can just change you. And so it just really helped ground me and to keep doing things that helped me feel like me. And one of the things that I remember you saying, Pamela, because you were one of my beta readers for Bones and Lies Between Us. One of the first things you wrote was, "You are so voicey." And I just thought that was such a funny phrase, and I loved it because Copper Daniels, if you like intense stories, told by a child, and this is very much adult fiction. Don't try this at home, kids. But, you just were like, I can hear Copper Daniels' voice so strong. And I just love that. Your writing is so voicey.
It is a unique voice. And as I said earlier, notwithstanding a global pandemic, I read all the time. I read to help my own writing. I read because I enjoy it. I read because of the podcast. And so I read a lot of different authors, and there's just something about Copper Daniels that I've never heard before. And I think that you guys, I think you'll feel it too when you check out her books, Marcy's books, Marcy right over here. So please do. And then let me know what you think, if you've heard that difference in Marcy's and Copper Daniels' voice, because I think it's really special. So
thanks, Pamela. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And not just because, you know, we wore different colored cheerleading skirts in high school. This is what I felt about this book when I opened it and said, wow. This is, and that's what we're all looking for, right? Is something that delights us, yet is fresh and different. It's like same great feeling, but better. That same great feeling, but different. Yeah. And so it's a fun trip. There's suspenseful books with you running along through these difficult circumstances with Copper to figure out the bad guys. It's a little thing.
I love it. So. I want to interject. This book, both of them are also funny. I mean, people comment that, you know, she has got a lot of sass to her. And so even though she's sort of in this dark world, you know, to her, it's normal, and just she's sort of telling you what she sees, and it's very funny. It's sort of, it's the whole thing. It will pull at your heartstrings. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. You know, cue the music.
It gives you all the feels, right? Yeah, it really does. And it is very funny. It's very funny. But Marcy's always been very funny. But the book itself, hilarious. Now, you mentioned earlier that that right now you've been writing about the aftermath of learning about trauma, et cetera. And you're not only writing about it, but it's caused a shift in you that was so profound that you decided to help others with what you've learned. And I'd love you to tell us about that briefly.
Well, thank you, Pamela. You know, while I was trying to get my book published, you always got to have a day job, and I guess not always, but I like staying busy. And so I had worked since 1996 as a leadership consultant. Years ago, I was the executive director of a nonprofit and a leadership nonprofit. So I've always been interested in personal development. And so after the fire and sort of the depression that followed, just the things I learned, I was like, why has Oprah not told me this? Oprah has told us this. It just hasn't become part of the mainstream conversation, because a house fire, everyone knows that that's a traumatic experience. But people don't understand that, you know, did your family move a lot growing up? Did your parents fight? Did your parents divorce? Were you bullied? I mean, those kind of things sort of leave emotional wounds, and that they manifest in our adult life as anxiousness, insomnia, stress, depression, you know, perfectionism, procrastination. I mean, however it manifests, unless you go back and sort of connect the dots, it's like there's a computer chip in your brain, and you keep replaying those same things over and over, even though you're an adult. So yes, I did become a life coach, and that's kind of how I've been helping people since the fire in 2017. And that's the book that I'm writing now, because I see so much trauma going on during this global pandemic, and want to help people.
I think that's wonderful. And yet, is there going to be more Copper Daniels? Is the most important question.
There will actually be a third book, and I hope to have it done. But right now, it's like my psyche, my body, and my brain has to get this nonfiction book out first to help people. But I do still work on Copper Daniels. It's just I want to get this nonfiction book out first, because I feel like that's what the world needs right now.
Yes. I'll let you have that, as long as you promise that you're going to get back to Copper someday, because we love Copper.
I will. I will.
Want to find out more about Marcy, about coaching, about books, fiction and nonfiction. Tell them where to go, Marcy.
MarcyMcKay.com. That's MarcyMCKay.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Because I really do encourage you guys to check this out. If you're going to do it and you have not read Pennies from Burger Heaven, my personal recommendation is why not start there? It's,
start there.
It's just really a great treat to work through the series with Copper. So
thank you.
That's my opinion. You're very welcome. It's really been fun to have you on. It's to reconnect after all these years, to have the honor and privilege of getting some early reads on your book. So thanks, books. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you live and in person again someday soon. But this is second best, if not.
I agree. Thank you, Pamela. This has been fun.
And all of you guys out there, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you. I want you to go get a copy of Pennies from Burger Heaven and Bones and Lies Between It and read that. And if you're looking for something that you can read or download free, due to financial circumstances, my novels are on Kindle Unlimited, which is a subscription-based kind of Netflix for books. So basically free. And also I have a bunch of free audiobook downloads that you can get at freeaudiobooks.com. Search by my name. And I don't mind if you buy the paid ones either. Go ahead, spend money on my books. I'm not going to say no. So you guys take care, and I'll see you May 20th with Colleen Mooney and Amy Van Zandt.
Perfect.
Bye, everyone.